College football starts this weekend. There's a game in Ireland early or late Saturday morning. Nebraska, Northwestern, and neither team, of course, has been much to talk about, although Nebraska gets a lot of pub because they have been such a dumpster fire, it seems like, for a long time. Mitch Sherman, theathletic.com, covers the Huskers and joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio. We'll have John Louis on from Wildcat Report on Northwestern at 4:45. Mitch, I can't imagine the pressure that Scott Frost must feel. Your thoughts, are they, and why are they better if they are, Nebraska?
I think they're better. It's good to talk to you, Smokey, first of all.
You too.
You know, it's tough to put your finger on it at this point. There's a lot of new faces around Lincoln, soon to be boarding a plane from Omaha to Dublin nonstop. The Huskers will be out tonight and in tomorrow morning across the Atlantic. So a day of acclimation ahead and then 2 days of practice before the Friday walkthrough. Crazy that week 0 is here, and I'm out tomorrow morning. So good thing you got me today. There's a lot of newness at Nebraska. 18 transfers, 15 from Division I schools, notably a couple of former Big 12 players out of the state of Texas, at least played college ball in Texas. In the case of O'Shawn Mathis, played high school football, of course, around Austin, and he's the TCU transfer who's going to be a big factor for Nebraska at the edge rusher spot. And then Casey Thompson, the former Texas QB out of Oklahoma City, is the QB1 heading into this opener. He won the job over Chubba Purdy, the Florida State transfer, and then Nebraska's returning quarterback Logan Smothers, who started the Iowa game a year ago, which was another one of those one-score defeats where Nebraska gave some things away late on special teams. That was kind of the story of the season a year ago. So this offseason, this camp at Nebraska has been marked by what I would say is more calm than what's been typical for this program. There's been no revelation of an NCAA investigation a week before the first game, as occurred a year ago. No talk of canceling games on the schedule. This happened last spring with the OU game in Norman. Pretty typical for a normal football program as far as the vibe and just the way things are trending for the Huskers. And their hope as they go overseas is that translates into more normalcy in the way that they play the game. And if they just play it the right way, the talent is there for this to be a much improved team. And that could translate to 6 or 7 wins and the first bowl game in 5 seasons under Scott Frost.
Okay, Mitch, you mentioned the special teams. So I guess the big questions would be, do they have somebody who can catch punts? Does that guy know when he should try and catch a punt? Do they also have people who can stand in front of the punter and not let the punt get blocked? Because those were huge things for them last year.
And they need a punter who can punt the ball in the direction that his coverage team is hit. All of those things appear to be they've been addressed. We'll see if they've been fixed on Saturday. You're referencing several of the moments from last season. Iowa blocked a punt that was a game-changing event, and in the second half of that Black Friday game in Lincoln that Nebraska gave away. Michigan State returned a punt for a touchdown that went to the wrong side of the field that forced overtime in a contest that Nebraska dominated after halftime and gave away. And then there was the opener where Cam Taylor-Britt, Nebraska's now second-round pick of the Cincinnati Bengals, fielded a punt and then walked into the end zone and took a safety in the first half to kind of set the tone for the special teams all year. Those things are probably not going to happen. I think I can say with confidence in 2022. The Huskers have brought on Bill Bush, who's now in his third stint as an assistant coach at Nebraska. He was a defensive analyst on Frost's staff a year ago, and before that was at LSU. He's been all over and is a veteran coach and is very in tune with the details of special teams. They've given it much more attention this offseason. Finally, this is something that I thought Nebraska should have done 2 years ago, really after the 2019 season, when special teams were trending awry. And it took Frost 2 more years of poor special teams play and really units that ranked in the 120s in the FBS. It's just completely unacceptable for a Big Ten school with the kind of talent on its roster that Nebraska has. And I don't mean overwhelming talent. I just mean the kind of talent where you should never rank in the bottom 10 of the entire FBS in any category. That requires you to have good athletes and people who can run. So, yeah, I think they can do all of that stuff this year. There's been much more attention paid to it in camp. It's the first thing they do every day with meetings and in practice. So we will see, but that's my expectation.
Mitch, what are you expecting the Mark Whipple offense to look like? How will it differ from what Nebraska fans have been used to? And why does Casey Thompson make sense as a guy who can make this machine move?
Well, he's got a lot of experience, at least a lot in comparison to the other options for Nebraska at quarterback. He started 10 games at Texas last year, and you guys remember that game against Oklahoma, the 61-55, I think was the score. And Thompson hurt his thumb in the second half of that game, and then played with that injury all season for the rest of the year. That was, I believe, his third start for the Longhorns. So he had a procedure done. He had ligaments torn in that thumb and had a procedure done after spring ball in Lincoln, and it's been a different experience for him throwing the ball since that surgery took place. And Nebraska says he was good in the spring, and he's been a different kind of quarterback in the 21 practices that they had in Lincoln before leaving tonight for Ireland. So it's been I would say a healthy competition, because Purdy is not a walkover, and neither is Smothers. If Nebraska needs either one of those guys because of an injury that happens to Thompson, they're not going to be in a bad place at quarterback. But obviously he's the guy that they want. Those two have one start apiece under their belts, and Casey is almost 24 years old. So he's made the fewest mistakes. He committed the fewest turnovers in practice. He had the fewest busts on plays as they charted them. The Whipple offense for him seems to be a good fit. You look at what Whipple did at Pitt last year with Kenny Pickett and turning around that offense. Of course, they had Jordan Addison, who's not on the Nebraska roster, but there are some solid receivers. They added Trey Palmer, who's a transfer from LSU, and that was with the Mickey Joseph connection. Joseph is the new wide receivers coach. He's a former Nebraska quarterback who was an assistant at LSU under Ed Orgeron and coached with Bill Bush on that staff. And they added Marcus Washington from Texas and several others through the transfer portal. You look at the skill positions for Nebraska, and really it's just filled up with guys who came in through the portal, whether it's corner or quarterback or wide receiver, running back, received assistance from the portal. Whipple's offense is it's a pass-heavy offense. He was criticized this offseason by Pat Narduzzi, the Pitt coach, for not wanting to run the ball. And that wasn't really the case at Pitt last year. It was just that they were a more successful passing team. And this Nebraska team and this offense might be one that's more suited to run the ball than what he had as far as personnel at Pitt last year. A lot of that's going to depend on the offensive line and if they've made significant improvements, which is the biggest question, I would say. Certainly on that side of the ball, it's the biggest question for the Huskers, but it might be the biggest question overall on this team, even above special teams, is what can the offensive line do? It wasn't great last year, and they lost a couple of key pieces this offseason. So all eyes will be on those guys up front when they take the field Saturday.
I know this might be a morbid question. It isn't meant to be, but if they don't win in Dublin against the team they beat by 7 touchdowns last year, when they get off the plane from coming overseas, if they don't win Saturday, is Scott Frost still the head coach?
Yeah, he's not going to get run at. It's a good question. We've seen it happen before. It happened at USC where a coach got fired on the runway. It probably will happen again someday in the world that we live in college football. I don't see any coaches getting fired in August, and Nebraska's coming back on August 28th from Dublin. But there's a bye week looming. Look, Frost has a buyout that goes down by 50% on October 1st. So Trev Alberts, the Nebraska AD, is not cutting the cord before that. That's just that doesn't make any kind of sense. But yeah, I mean, if they lose Saturday, then the countdown is on and the watch is on for when it might happen. It won't really be a matter of if at that point. I would say now, things could change. Things could happen on the schedule that would reverse the damage done if Nebraska loses the opener. It's not a team that expects to win 10 or 11 games, so you can absorb one loss, but that's not a likely scenario. Nebraska's not the kind of team that I could see losing against Northwestern, as you mentioned, a 56-7 decision a year ago in Lincoln, and then come back on September 17th and beat Oklahoma. It just doesn't seem in the cards for this program. So if you're 2-2, which is probably what's going to happen if a loss occurs Saturday, because North Dakota and Georgia Southern are the opponents in between, then you go into a bye week, and then October 1st is there when Indiana comes to Lincoln in week 5. So that's the day that you want to circle on your calendars if you're looking for something to happen with this Nebraska job being open.
Do you feel palpable tension at any time when you're around, or is it? I mean, does everybody kind of know the score?
Yes, and yes. It is tense. It's tense among the fans. It's tense at times with some of the assistant coaches, who have been given this really short window in which to operate. Guys on the offensive side who are new, all of them except one assistant coach are in their first seasons, and they're tasked to win and win now. They're all pros, and they all knew what they were signing up for. So it's but yeah, that leads to some tension for sure. And yeah, there's also an understanding of that this is a business, and that it's got to happen, and it's got to happen now. So there won't be another 3-9 season that includes a reprieve at the end. I can tell you that it's got to be considerably better than that, probably double that win total in order for this coaching staff to last another year into 2023.
Mitch, do you think any Nebraska fan or administrator had any thoughts in their mind when they joined the Big Ten that they'd one day be bunkmates with Southern Cal and UCLA?
No, I don't think that was on their minds in 2010. That was a different time, a different era.
Oh yeah,
in Nebraska's history. You can think back to that time and the conversations that occurred between Tom Osborne, who was the AD then, and Jim Delaney, the commissioner of the Big Ten, right after Nebraska played in Dallas and lost to Texas 12-10 in that infamous Big 12 championship game. And then the Huskers came back a year later and blew a 17-point lead against Oklahoma in another Big 12 championship game in their last season, their last game their last Big 12 game as a member of the league. So no, at that point it was get to the Big Ten and start to establish your identity alongside Iowa and Wisconsin, and carve something out that you can do for a long time and fit with those universities. And while some of that has occurred, it hasn't occurred in the way that Nebraska clearly hoped for it to on the football field or on the basketball court, I suppose you could say, for that matter too. Really in the athletic arenas, there have been some good things about Nebraska joining the Big Ten. Financially, it's been fantastic for the school and the state, but success has been hard to find, and nowhere in those visions do I think that they were expecting USC and UCLA to come on board, and really, while it's good again for the bottom line, it's just a move that makes it more difficult to win for Nebraska in this league.
So, Mitch, thank you very much. Safe travels, young man. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Have a good week 0 and week 1.
You have one job. Bring home. Thank you to Mitch Sherman, theathletic.com. We'll have a write